Hi there, it's me here, Trim Retriever Kate, linguist, founder of Lingua and Lingua Plus. And today I have a question for you. Have you ever noticed that you feel like a different person when you're speaking another language, or maybe you're feeling that you're thinking differently? Maybe it's more structured or less structured. Maybe you're more logical or less logical, or perhaps your emotions are more or less intense. Maybe even you find it easier to make decisions in a foreign language, or maybe it's more difficult. Let's find out. Um, I've done a lot of different studies, and also, yeah, I've read obviously lots of papers figuring out how it actually works, because I started feeling while being active multilingual and multicultural person, I feeling that there's so many different ways how I can express myself across all these languages, and also what happens inside my head. So maybe I'm crazy, but no, it's not really. And there are a lot of us like this. So when we think with you about this process of multilingual brain, multilingual thinking, multilingual feeling, it turns out indeed that when we switch between languages, a lot of things change and influence the way how we see the world, how we behave. And I've been developing my own theory of language alter ego that I've been talking quite a lot here about. But we need to consider a few things, like when we talk about brain itself, like neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is this amazing ability of our brain to change, to adapt. And probably if you're multilingual, you can ask your doctors, check this. I've checked myself like about neuroplasticity, like how good my neuroplasticity is. And so it's very good. If you right now, if you don't have good neuroplasticity, or let's say like you are just speaking one language now, let's say English, and you want to increase it, because it will help you then in elder age, to push Alzheimer and all, then, well, pick up languages, right? Because one of the ways how to train your neuroplasticity, how to make it more, agile, is to learn new information, right? And find yourself in a new environment. So when when we speak multiple languages, even like starting here with bilingual, right, situation, we have with you three main brain, say, functions areas. So like we talk with you about prefrontal cortex. Typically, this is a place that helps us to switch, right, between languages. We can call it like a controller of mental traffic. But then, of course, we have hippocampus. Hippocampus comes up a lot in memory training. Like years ago, I participated in all this memory championships, and we talked a lot about hippocampus and how it helps to memorize your like new vocabulary, grammar rules, store information, and how much attention we need to pay to it. And then, of course, if you Google, you'll find different diets that help hippocampus to get stronger, which I believe is true, like when they talk about nuts and chocolate and like other, potential like healthy foods, check it out. And then, of course, we have this so-called, like cognitive control system. It's like overall cognitive control system that helps to control the interface, yeah, between languages, also, between cultures. And what's peculiar here, indeed, there have been like so many studies on that, especially like Penn University, like Penn State, said that bilinguals can engage in, say, multiple tasks with a better focus and also with a better cognitive control. And that's not all. There have been studies about problem solving. And apparently, bilinguals or multilinguals are acing, like this studies, acing at problem solving. And I really think that's true because our brain, when we speak multiple languages, uh, has to do so much work. So we literally like train our brain as a muscle. And I think it's beautiful, especially if you're just starting this multilingual journey, like what waits you ahead. There's so many amazing perks. But apart from that, I would say that if we think, let's say we start thinking, maybe you already are thinking really well, another language. we have other very peculiar effects. There's been a study at the Chicago University talking about the foreign language effect. And they've been conducting studies saying that, look, if you speak another language, probably you feel less emotional, more logical, because the emotional weight of your emotions in new language is weaker. Look, I feel that I agree to disagree because it depends. It depends a lot on the way how you use those languages, where like how frequently you speak them, how deeply you are connected to these languages and emotions. I've talked in other videos about emotions that you can connect to your emotions, and maybe even if like you had only one language or a couple of languages in your childhood where your parents were talking to you in that language or languages, then of course like it's like your earlier like childhood development, then all your emotions, everything get connected to those languages. But then when you're like a teenager and then adult, you can still develop that very deep connections with those emotions. And then even more, if we think about it, we get with you certain cultures where we have these cultural scripts that demonstrate how like how these emotions must be say expressed or received in a more pompous way or in a more, scandalous way. You can think already, about these cultures and stereotypes, just like literally what you see. And then obviously we have this more reserved cultures. And what it means that when you tapped into those emotional scripts and cultural scripts and those environments, you also start adjusting your behavior, meaning that even in foreign languages, you may feel more emotional. You may feel like, oh, I want to swear, I want to argue in that particular language more than when I'm speaking like other languages. Happened to me many times. And that's okay. What it just means that your brain, your nervous system, your body adapt to different environments. And from there, obviously, we come to the point as well of decision making. Because maybe if you speak multiple languages, some languages you're connected better to your emotions. And then in some languages, let's say you're more shallow right now. Maybe because you've been using this languages more for your work, for some technical tasks, doesn't matter. But the thing is that you may try to switch to those languages to make decisions because you will be more logical, more rational. And this may indeed help you if you need to make only like a decision with your head. I typically, of course, go with a gut. But I also noted that indeed you may come up with slightly different results. And here we start thinking, oh, what? What? Like language influences our decision making? Well, superior dwarf relative linguistics, guys. I think, some of this is working indeed. And because it's not just about language, it's also about emotional script and cultural script and how we perceive ourselves in that language and the culture. Well, of course, another one, apart from, like self-perception, we've got like a perception of reality. And here, probably we heard about it, but let me tell you one more time because I enjoy it so much. Of course, it's about perception of colors. And there have been these examples of Slavic languages where we have different shades of blue and different shades of green that don't exist in like English or German, like so they're like separate words, for these shades. And according to the studies, Slavic people can distinguish those shades much faster, better than, for instance, English speakers. But it's not only Slavic languages. There are other colors, like as well in Korean. There are like a mix of shades and like other Asian languages that have those peculiar combinations with specific words. And speaking of words, of course, we talk about untranslatable words, unique words that I absolutely love. And I've also created videos on that point because I think that in order to really get into the culture and all these emotional scripts to understand the soul of the language of another culture, you need to dig into those untranslatable words. Idioms, set phrases, sure, but untranslatable words it's something really special. There is a really good one in Japanese. I may pronounce it wrong, like feel free to correct me. Amae, which means it's like it describes emotions, like a pleasant feeling of dependency on someone. And this tells you already a lot about the Japanese culture. I often give an example of saudade in Brazilian Portuguese about, yeah, the feeling of longing, yeah, for someone, which can be described this way, but it's much, much deeper here. And there, of course, there are so many beautiful words like yakamos from Turkish. Even there are like competitions on most beautiful words, untranslatable words in the world. So this actually with colors and with words demonstrates how languages help us to see the world from a different perspective. And I think, it's beautiful. And from there, of course, talking about this untranslatable words and emotions, we go to like code switching, bilingualism also, yeah. Recently, like I've created one of the videos about bilingual brain and yeah, what happens to us. What's beautiful about it that emotionally, indeed, we may feel different because if we talk again about this cultural and emotional scripts, we may feel that, for instance, in English, we will be more direct, assertive if it's like American English. British English, probably more reserved. I had a situation like 10 years ago when I was invited for the first time to TEDx, even before my St. Andrews talk. And at the very final rehearsal, I totally failed it, boomed it utterly because I got so much into my British persona, like super reserved, super, timid, that on stage it was awful. That my coach there said, like, maybe you should go more international. This is just like this is like no. Like, yeah, you're British, but no. So I started shifting more to European one, open one, and like for instance, when I'm in US, so I am getting more assertive, like bolder type of person. But when, for instance, if you speak any Asian language, let's say like Japanese, you will actually feel probably more like politely reserved, right? Like distance. Or maybe when you're speaking Spanish, you are much warmer, you're maybe even like invasive, like intruding into like to your space here of other people. And that's, it's fine. It just means that you are tapping into those cultural and emotional scripts, and you are shaping, maybe even without noticing it, your language alter ego, because eventually it's all about creating that personality, then identity in a completely different environment, a sociocultural environment through that language. And I think the more we pay attention to it, the better we become at communication, the better we become at understanding each other, and understanding ourselves, because we are complex creatures. But maybe, you'll be wondering, oh, but how do I get there? Maybe you were just at the beginning. Listen, first of all, you definitely need to learn to stop translating in your head. If right now, say you're trying to learn like Spanish, Italian, whichever, and you are thinking in English and then translating, maybe you have another like mother tongue, and then yeah, like you're translating from your mother tongue to English or something else. Stop it. Don't do it. What do you need to do first? Like you need to immerse yourself. Yeah, immerse yourself in the language. If you're not in the country of the language, well, use books, TV shows, movies, YouTube, music, radio, everything that's around you that you can actually access from your country, from your place. For sure, you need to tap into emotion. So you need to start developing, if you haven't already, please do. You need to start developing emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence right now, there's so many resources about it. What do you need to do? You need to start learning how to identify your emotions, how to connect to your emotions and feelings. Because as soon as you start doing it in one language, then you can switch to another language. So the language that let's say you're learning or speaking a foreign language, and you need to start identifying, oh, what is it? Is it sadness? Is it joy? Playing around there and putting it down, kind of like creating some sort of like, let's say emotional journaling, whatever it is, like a bit of, therapy. but it will help you really to go deeper with the language, like with your nervous system. And when your nervous system is like it starts incorporating this new language and new experiences, especially emotional experiences in new language, you will feel a big shift. Like it means like when you get to the point, you will notice that you won't have to switch to your, let's say, mother tongue to swear, to express your anger or like positive emotions, like negotiate, whatever. You will actually stay in that language. That's a very, peculiar thing. And one also very important one, it's about your inner voice. Talked about it. We all have different inner voices. If you don't have, don't worry, because maybe your cognition so like works slightly differently. Maybe you see pictures like short clips, but still, we all talk to ourselves, and often, at least half of the population of this planet. So we often have multiple voices that come from different stages of our life, different people, ourselves, and all. So you need to start talking to yourself in that language, in your target language. You can do like, let's say, talking about some funny stories, memories, journaling, anything that will help you to stay in that language with yourself. Because like often you've heard of this, like, oh, you speak multiple languages, but in which language do you think when you're on your own? And multiple depending on the country where I am, like right now, and the day, like people who I'm talking to. Because if today I'm speaking in English, let's say like I'm talking to you, and then I'm also thinking in English. If, let's say, in an hour I'm going to have a meeting like in Italian, then I will be switching to Italian, and so on and so forth. This is like another thing that, I created for myself to help me not to get too confused. But I think it's very important for you to learn to talk to yourself, yeah, in target language or languages. And also really cool thing to try out is to create, like to choose activities that will trigger that language. For instance, I was told, like one of the clients, he learned sailing in English, even though he's German speaking. And he told me, like, I even don't know the terms for sailing in German. I know them only in English. So every time now I go sailing, I think in English. And I think that's beautiful. You can do something similar. Like you can be, learning to play piano, sing, gardening, whatever it is, and try to stick to a particular language. Maybe get a coach, get an instructor in that language and see what happens. In any case, you have different strategies, different ways to get there. And don't be afraid if you feel confused, because maybe you just need a little bit of time, or like your brain needs a little bit of time to adapt to the switch, or multiple switches per day or per week. Well, that's it for today. If you like this video, please subscribe, share. If you have your own stories to share, please comment. I'd love to see these comments. I'd love to talk to you. And yeah, and think about new studies, like to do my research. And I'll see you in new videos. Bye.